hate Toyotas or whatever, that guy. But if you could get that guy even to listen to it, so if we mention an elliptical machine and I have it at 40% off, nobody's interested in that. But if I go on the radio, just as an example of what we did for this client, and I say, did you know that death by all disease can be cut in half by just one thing that you can do every day? Did you know that 8 out of 10 Americans can cut their death by all disease in half? And that's sort of like along those lines, those kind of statistics. And when we started using those kinds of statistics in the radio spots, now we're appealing to the whole pyramid, you understand?
Right, everybody's listening.
Like up here, you know, if I'm selling an elliptical machine at 40% off, I'm just getting the guy who wants an elliptical machine. But if I start giving you statistics about death by all disease, cancer, heart disease, you know, like there's almost no disease, by the way, that exercise doesn't impact in some very, very positive way. And
you know that great statistic too, which is, it comes from the Journal of American Medical Association, right? That says what? If you want to cut your chances of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes by 50%, all you got to do is what?
Exercise and walk 2 miles a day.
Walk 2 miles a day. So, I mean, that was the beauty. You guys put that in the ad, and then people who weren't even interested, and then you say you can walk and do that process, or you can do it on your own little elliptic machine, and sales went crazy for this one.
Well, even better, though, we didn't say walk 2 miles a day.
Oh, you didn't tell them what it was.
They got to call and find out.
Oh, interesting.
So that really just set the world on fire. And again, it's another example of where I'm advertising elliptical machine 40% off and I'm getting, 3 leads. Well, when we went to this, they really went to getting 30 leads, 35 leads, 70 leads. So again, for you folks listening at home, what can you say that even the guy at the bottom of that pyramid would go, what's that? I mean, you're not gonna make him buy, but what would he want to learn more about? And that's the whole hook of education-based marketing.
Right. That makes so much sense. Now, give me one more. Give me an example of B2B where you're selling business to business also. I know you talked to me about the example, the roofing company. It's still your client to this day.
Charlie Munger's a good example too. We can go there, but with the roofing company, again, tactically, they'd call up and say, "Hi, we're XYZ Roofing Company. We'd love to come and talk to you about your roof." Well, if you're not in the buying now category, what are you going to say to that? You're going to say no. And the other thing is, in their case, they sell for commercial roofs, for like this hotel, for example, or for a huge restaurant or a Walmart. These are massive roof systems. A roof on a Walmart market costs $50 million. And so with a roof like that, you're going to take professional care of it. And these guys would call up, and the person they would normally get to speak to in most organizations was a facilities manager. And the facilities manager is told by his boss, which might be the CFO or the CEO, get this as cheap as possible. And so his focus is on how to save money, not necessarily how to get the best quality. And even if he found somebody that was a little more expensive, better quality, it'd be hard for him to go to his boss and say, this is better, but I think it's better. But there's no way these roofing salespeople are going to get to see the boss calling up and saying, I want to come and talk to you about your roof, because the boss is like, I'm not interested in that. So we created something called the 5 most dangerous trends facing building owners. And now if I call you up and you own a building here, where you have your offices, and I say to you, look, we've done some research and we found out there's 5 dangerous trends that are literally threatening the very fabric and fiber of your building ownership. And we put that into an education. You go, well, you're a roofing company, right? This is kind of like the objection part starts coming, and you go, well, we are, but did you know that 90% of all the problems you're going to have in your roof actually have in your building start on your roof? Yeah, well, that's just part of it. I mean, actually, one of the other things we found is that there's heavy litigation now around building ownership. Were you aware of that? Well, yeah, I'm kind of aware of that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you'd like to avoid some of that litigation, we'll teach you how. So if you're going to try and go after the bigger boss, you're going to have an education that boss is interested in. So we created all this. And again, they ended up, and the other thing that it did is it changed what kind of person could make the sales call. Because they used to have a guy who had to be a roofing expert, because his whole goal was get with the facilities manager, get him up on the roof, and start showing them all the mistakes that the last roofers had made. This thing, you could get with the owner. It was packed with information. There was a shift at some point. We went to talking about the roof because we showed them 90% of all problems in a building start on the roof. Makes sense, right? And but by the time it was done, that guy did not care when he saw about the litigation, about all the damage, and about how water on the roof. And again, it's a roofing company, and they weren't teaching any of this stuff because all they were, tactically they want to sell this roofing service. So we did some research and we found out that water, when it gets into the roof and then goes down into the building, it turns insulation into a conductor of energy instead of an insulator. So for example, if it's cold in the winter, it's now going to put a block of ice around your building. Your heat's going to run 50% more. If it's in the summertime, it turns that insulation into a conductor of heat. And in fact, they've got pictures where they show 2 hours after the sun goes down, that roof is still hot because this insulation is wet and it's like a conductor of energy. So anyway, now going in and teaching all of that kind of thing, it just really changed everything, because they could have salespeople who were sophisticated executives and good at selling and didn't have to know anything about the roof. Because if I sell you about why you need much better servicing in your roof, you make that sale intellectually. I don't need to take you up on the roof. And then of course the close just became an analysis of what was wrong with the roof, and then you as the owner, you don't care that it costs more. So it just did all these things. Got them better appointments. It got them appointments with a higher level executive. They then invited the facilities manager, so it was also in the meeting. It got them more money for the same services, because after the owner saw like the failure rate of most companies and how much litigation and how their warranties don't mean crap anyway, and after he sees all this, he just goes, you know what? I don't care that you guys are $1 more an hour. Who cares?
Because I'm saving so much more than they are. So again, it's educating them so that they desire and need your services. And that you've been great at doing that research, but you also show people how to do it, and you also have companies that you recommend that actually do that kind of research. So if you're at home going, well, how would I get all that information? It's available on the web. You can do it on your own, or you can go work with a company that does that type of work. I know you did that with Charlie Munger too. Isn't that one of the ways you doubled sales for the first advertising company working with Charlie Munger?
Right.
By the way, if people don't know, Charlie Munger is whose partner?
He's Warren Buffett's partner.
Yeah, just in case anybody doesn't know. So he's no slouch. A multi-billionaire. Has been incredible through his time. But tell us how you did that as an example. And I'm asking you all these examples that people watching are coming from different places. Some are B2B, they're business to business. Some are B2C, they're selling consumers. I want people to see the education marketing. The roofing company, we didn't say what happened. What happened out of them using that strategy? How did it change their business?
It radically changed their business. Last I heard, they had like 60 dream clients, which is the next strategy we're going to talk about.
But didn't they start to dominate the industry at that stage? Didn't
They are
over?
the most dominant force.
Yeah, so I thought
in
they're
the
now
industry.
number one.
Yeah, nobody can take business away from them. And it's, again, because they've taught the client about how to buy in a much more profound way. Yes. And they set it up first by showing them all the things that can go wrong if you don't buy in this more profound way.
And then showed how they were the best one to service that. So,
exactly.
So they added massive value and made it so you can't do business with anybody but me.
Right.
How did you do this in the advertising business way back when you first started here with Charlie Munger?
Well, that actually blends two of the strategies because, first of all of our competitors were calling up people saying, "I would love to come and talk to you about advertising." And I didn't like being treated like a salesperson, which is sort of like the foundation of all this stuff. So I would always call them up and try to offer something of extreme value. So in the case of Charlie Munger, we did some studies and we found out what kinds of approaches to our market were working in a more profound way and what wasn't. And then we'd call up companies and we'd say, we've got this study that shows you the 5 reasons why companies fail in this industry and the 6 reasons why they succeed. Have you heard about this? No, I haven't. Well, we've got this great study, and we're going to be showing this to all your competitors. I wasn't that blatant, but you'd say, like, if you're talking to Bank of America, you'd say, yeah, and actually we are going to be showing this to Wells Fargo and Citibank, and just thought you might want to see the same information. It's pretty hard to turn that down if it sounds like compelling data and their competitors are going to see it. But here's the point. When you go to that best buyer strategy, when Charlie bought this magazine, it was number 15 in an industry of 15 magazines. It didn't even count, yeah. And there were 2,200 in the database of advertisers. But in the top 4 publications, there were just 167 buyers who bought 95% of all the advertising.
Let me be clear. So out of 2,000 plus, you've got 15% of those people or less, I guess, 7%, 6% of them that are buying 95% of the business.
Right.
So if I could focus in on those 6%,
right,
and all I got to do is land one of those and I make a ton of money.
Right, and that's what most people don't realize. But here's the key, is that it takes an intense effort. Most people well, boy, I mean, if Microsoft bought from me, it would change my life, but, they're so big, you never get them. Well, I'll show you how to get them. You just never give up.
So tell us how you did that.
So we took this list of 167 potential
biggest buyers.
Yeah, the biggest buyers. I took the budget, which was $2,200 a month that we used to just do a blanket mailing every month. This is what we're doing this month in our magazine. Please advertise. This is what we're doing that month in our advertising. Please advertise. And we just took that budget and we spent it on 167 people.
So took all that you're spending on the couple thousand just on the key buyers, just shifted it.
So if you're one of those guys, now you're starting to we send 2 gifts, not expensive gifts because it comes off like you're bribing them, want to be clear about that. But if it's a cheap little funny gift, like we sent a yo-yo and we'd say, tired of your sales going up and down, get our free report. Or we sent us a flashlight and it says, don't be in the dark about, this and that. So it
stands out from all the other packages of mail that you're getting.
Exactly.
And so forth. Yeah, got it.
And if you're starting to get 2 of those a month, every single month, it's not very long before you know exactly who that company is. I mean, really, within 3 or 4 months, every single advertiser knew exactly who we were. And then we augmented that by making a phone call before the package would arrive and after the package would arrive, offering the same thing the package offers. So that I get, just like the same message from you again and again and again. And over a 3, 4, 5 month period, we didn't get any because we're going after the biggest ones.
So you didn't get anything in the beginning?
4 months.
Now, that's when most people would just go, it's not working.
Right.
Well, why didn't you give up?
Because I never give up.
I know this personally, folks. 17 years I knew this guy. He pursued a relationship with us and gave me a lot of value. But one thing that most people don't do, and Harvey Mackay does the same thing. Harvey Mackay wrote several books many years ago, but he's the top in the envelope business in Minnesota. He would say to me, I go because I know they're going to eventually say yes, or they're going to die and somebody else is going to take over their position and they're going to say yes. There's the truth in that. So you just don't give up. So after 4 months, what happens?
We didn't get any advertisers, but they were the biggest advertisers. And even though the top brass in the company is kind of like, it's 4 months, you haven't got anything, because I'm in the trenches, I know we've got stuff coming, I'm like, so in the 5th month, we got the biggest advertiser in the history of the magazine. And in the 6th month, we got 28 more. And
it's almost like a tipping point that you just hit, and then all of a sudden they start to come.
It was advertising. So what happens in advertising is it's cyclical. So everybody's doing their media plan. We got on 29 media plans of the biggest advertisers. That alone doubled our sales. But if you targeted 167 dream clients and you got 29 of them, would you stop there?
Yeah, of course not.
So that's how we doubled sales 3 years in a row. We just kept going after those same. First of all, the first 29 we go deeper and deeper and deeper in those relationships, and then we kept going after and got more and more of that 167. And in the first year, just that tied me with first place with the #1 book in the field. And the second year, we doubled their advertising pages.
Well, after you've done that with several divisions with Charlie, tell the story when Charlie came into you one day. Remember that? Share with the audience the story.
Yeah, well, after we doubled the sales of that business 3 years in a row, Charlie Munger, and if you know Charlie, he says, I'll do my Charlie invitation because it's exactly what he sounds like. He says to me, now, Chet, in all my years and all the companies I've run, I've never known anybody to double business 3 years in a row. Are you sure we're not lying, cheating, or stealing? Literally, that's the conversation.
But this is a great strategy also for anybody who's maybe doesn't even own their own company, but they're looking to move up in a company. Well, how do you do it? You add value. These two strategies to start with, this idea of education marketing, this idea that says, if I can bring something to the table to my buyers or potential buyers that no one else is bringing, that gives them an advantage or gets their full attention, and not just the 3% that's going to buy right now,
but the bottom
but
guy.
The bottom, the people that might be interested, the people that don't think they're interested. If you can put out your offer in a way that meets their needs, the game changes overnight. Second strategy I'm hearing from you is I want to double sales. Go for a Dream 100. What's my best buyer? Where can I concentrate tons of effort? Now, truthfully, when you do that, if you've already got a business, you keep what you're doing right now so you don't lose that, and you make this a second parallel strategy, right?
Right. I mean, in the case of Charlie, he had all the money of God, so it wasn't going to break him that it took me 5 months to get the first advertiser, and then the 6th month, all those additional advertisers. But most companies, you can't abandon all your current strategies, but you can add this additional side strategy. And here's a quote: "There's no one you can't get to if you're determined." And the best thing to do is to plan that in advance. So that's what I did with, which leads to the third strategy for doubling sales, which we can talk about systemization a little bit there.
Before you do, I want to give people one more distinction. I mean, think about if you
Listen. Listen. It's Chet Holmes. A conversation between Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, a legendary marketing strategist that I recommend every one of you to listen to him, learn from him, and apply it into the reality of business, because all the present content marketer and they all learn from them. He was one of the first who applied content marketing as educational marketing. So learn.
But 8 people said no. So, I mean, to him, that's a failure, but let's do the math. This guy has 30,000 clients. He gets 10,000 buying a year. If he got just 20% of them buying that gold service, cleaning twice a year, that's 6,000 extra sales a year, and he's only doing 10,000 now.
His business by 60% overnight.
Yeah, but we ended up actually working on that idea for about 6 months to get it where 4 out of 10. So I'm just saying a little lesson to, if you're listening, a little bit of success can make a huge difference. You know what I mean? In this case,
so what was the final increase in the business?
It was 100%. 100%. And it was a great success.
How old was that business? The reason I like that
100 years old.
Yeah, 100, that's what I thought. It was a family business, right? So 100
Generation.
Fourth generation still offered discounts. Hopefully everyone watching is going to get out of this. Everybody gets out of this is you do what everybody else does, you're going to get what everyone else gets. You can't, the most you can get is an incremental improvement in your business if you offer the discounts or you throw out your auto ad and it says, this weekend, buy now, special sale. But if you can get inside the mind of your consumer and figure out what they need, you can motivate them to buy, and you can also get people that want to buy that never bought before, or get your ideal client and figure out how to motivate them to buy. But as you said, you got to systematize it, not once or twice. You got to keep going at it. The biggest challenge that most people have in their business is they try something and they don't extrapolate. Well, God, if I change one thing, I can change the result 100%. I got to find that one little thing, and then I got to make it a system within the business itself. Let's talk a little bit about salespeople. All right, one of the great things you've done today, I go into business audiences, and because of the web and because of the mentality of how so many people market today, many people think salespeople are, they're an expense, they're too hard to manage, my business doesn't need it. And I've seen so many companies today that you just come in, and we've done it, you and I've done it with multiple companies, come in and show them, look, make this little shift, hire a few salespeople, but the right ones, people that it's their nature, so you're not trying to retrain them 8 million times, and you watch sales go crazy. So talk a little bit about, if you would, about salespeople. Why are they, you'd think people wouldn't have to know this, but many businesses do. Why would they be a must? And more importantly, how do we get the right people that are highest performers? Because that's part of what made you successful. You were one of those guys, but you figured out how to get more of those.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't think I was anything special as a salesperson.